Baruch Hashem, you're a bad Jew.
Shalom.
Welcome back to another episode of Bad Jew, the place where there is no such thing as a bad Jew. With me today is Liel Kopell, otherwise known as Mr. Kopell. Mr. Kopell, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, much as I can with this situation right now, but I'm fine. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for those who don't know, Mr. Kopell is an influencer off of TikTok and Instagram. He talks with pro-Hamas people all the time. And I mean, he is so professional. But aside from how professional his name sounds, Mr. Kopell, like he is so professional with how he represents the Jewish people and the nation of Israel. It's pretty incredible. We're going to
Thank
hear
you
more
very
about
much.
his story in a second. Mr. Kopell, as I just mentioned before that we started this podcast, we have something, there's right of entry onto the podcast called the 4-Minute Bad Jew Challenge, where I time you in 4 minutes to tell your life story. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Excellent. Echad, shtayim, shalosh, yalla.
Yalla, let's go. So first of all, hello everybody. It's nice to meet you. I want to introduce myself. My name is Liel Kopell, actually. I live in Haifa in the north of Israel. I was born here in Haifa. Since I was young, my dream was to be a football player, actually, soccer player. I was playing till the age of 17, in which in the age of 17, I had a bad injury on my knee. I turned my ACL. It's a really familiar injury in sports, maybe one of the baddest, one of the toughest. And I decided to join the army because I think it's really important and every Jew should join in the age of 18. Also because I'm really patriotic of my country and I really love Israel, of course. So I joined with my injury, I healed, I finished my job in the army in the IDF. And then I was supposed to go to the United States to learn in a college in New York. I also continued to play football that time. And after a few months of playing, I was supposed to fly to New York. And 1 week before my flight, I turned my ACL again in the same knee. I had a terrible time. This month, I canceled all my plans. And I had really tough times. And in this time, I decided to open the YouTube channel and TikTok channel, and I started to upload videos. First of all, it was my opinions of some stuff or on the news, or I was playing gaming and stuff. And I decided to go up with the followers, and people started to be familiar with me. And after the 7th of October events, I opened a new TikTok account that basically speaking only about the situation in Israel. And I had millions of views on TikTok. And what I try to do basically is to bring a real opinion of a Jew or of a Zionist, like they like to say, to the world. And I'm happy that I have the platform, in the TikTok that I can show my opinion to the world. So this is, I don't know if it was 4 minutes, but this is my story basically. I'm still young, but
That's
I have through a lot on my life. Yeah.
Hey, that was a really great use of time. Great job. I think it's a really great way to look at you. And also I left the little ticker on the bottom for those who are on YouTube. Please go follow Mr. Kopell on TikTok, Mr. Kopell New, or on Instagram at Mr.Kopell, which is great. And by the way, it's funny because my personal Instagram is mr.Chaz Volk. So yeah.
So we have something in common.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a question for you. I have a question for you for this particular episode. And we haven't done a topic like this on Bad Jew yet. So this is going to be kind of new territory for the show itself.
Mhm.
You've been talking about this for some time. And the question is, what is Palestine? Because we keep on, especially right now, hearing about it, but we can't really identify a place on the map that it exists. I've never seen the word Palestine. The closest I've seen is the West Bank and Gaza, obviously. Before you answer, I want to know, what are your qualifications to answer this question?
Well, I'm not tend to be a professor or something, but a real quick search on Google, right? You don't need to be such a genius.
Okay.
In a real quick search on Google, you can see that I don't say there was never Palestine, all right? I don't tend to say it. But the answer is, what is Palestine? This is the question you need to ask, because is it a state or is it a land? Because people tend to have a big confusion between Palestine, the state, that was never exist, and you're right about it, between Palestine, the land, because Palestine, the land, was exist. And it's important to learn who called it, what was Palestine, and who lived in Palestine. And when you understand these three questions and you answer it, you understand that it was never belonging to Muslims. Palestine were actually belonging to Jews and Christians as well. You know what I mean?
Right. So it was owned by pretty much all three monotheistic religions. But you're also making the distinction here that, there never was a state, there never was a governing state or a sovereign state, but there
hmm
always was a land. So there
hmm
was a land called Palestine at some point.
You know, when I'm talking to pro-Palestinians around the world, they also say we need to free Palestine and we need to give Palestine back. So when I ask them who we need to give it back, so they tend to tell me the Palestinians. But I'm telling them, all right, you know that Palestinians before 48 was also Jews and Christians. It wasn't also all of Muslims. And then they don't know what to answer back, because all they teaching them is that we need to give the land back to Palestinians. But when
Right.
you ask yourself, who were the Palestinians, you understand that it wasn't belong to the Muslims. Like, why is Palestine land is more Muslims than is Jews? It doesn't. It was never was by controlled like by Muslim people. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
always controlled but by other country.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to tell them.
It's very interesting. So this was a land that was actually controlled by other countries, and there happened to be Christians, Jews, and Muslims there. It wasn't dominantly Muslims. It was kind of
Yes, they just live together. You know what I mean?
okay. So they coexisted in the
Yeah.
time that it was called Palestine, and it was a
hmm
region, right? It wasn't like it was kind of just like a random piece of land that hadn't fully been claimed, right? Or
When
or
when they
was there a governing body there?
when the Romans beat the Jews
Uh-huh.
back in the history,
Mhm.
they wanted to offend them and they called the land Palestine because Palestinians was Jews' enemies. I'm talking about back then, like before counting.
You said the
And
Palestinians were the Jews' enemy?
yeah, before counting. I'm speaking about the Bible time,
Okay. Okay.
long ago. So when the Romans beat us and they take all the Jews out of here, they call the land Palestine. And since then, all right, this is true that this area since then was calling Palestine. This is this is true. This is not fake.
But
But the
then
problem, the confusion everybody has, that this land Palestine wasn't controlled by the Palestinians that are today in Gaza in the West Bank. You know what I mean? It
right.
was controlled by other authorities. I don't know, the British, the Ottomans, the Romans. It was never controlled by the Palestinians authorities you have today. This is the biggest lie in history.
Right. So kind of the idea that there are Palestinians, that the Palestinians that live in Gaza and the West Bank were the same people that lived
And this is
in the
leading
land.
us this
Yeah.
is leading us to 1948,
Okay.
when the British decided to go out of here and the UN decided to split the country by two. Then, only then, the Muslims decided they want to be independent, and they want to create a Palestinian state over all the land. This is first time in history that the Muslims actually wanted to be independent. All right? So, if you want to speak about 48 and take all the history from then it's a different conversation, because then you have the wars and you have all what happened in the 6 day wars, and this is a big mess. It's a conversation, like it's a different topic.
Absolutely. It sounds like a different topic. I want to backtrack for a second. I want to get clarification here for a second. The name Palestine, you said it came from the enemies of the Jews,
Yeah.
but is that named after the Philistines or who else exactly was where'd the name Palestine come from?
Where, well, the only source you can base off is the Bible.
Okay.
And in the Bible, you can see clearly, which, by the way, Christians and Jews believe in the Bible.
Mhm.
And in the Bible, you can see clearly that it says that the Philistines, they call them Plishtim in Hebrew.
Okay.
And in English, it's the Philistines. All right.
Okay.
They were the neighbors of the Jew. Like, I think it's in the area of Jordan today. I'm not sure. They were the neighbors of the Jews, and they were always fighting. And when the Romans came here, they beat the Jews and expelled them from this land. And they called this land Palestine, like to celebrate the win. That's the name of the land stand until Israel established.
Got it. So the Romans changed the name as a censure to, the past to kind of rewrite the any legitimacy that might have been to the Jews of the past back then. Okay, got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Amazing, amazing. And so now we understand the context of the name. One thing I want to remind the audience, whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, is there's a famous interview with Golda Meir, who was the first woman prime minister in the world.
Yeah.
Golda Meir, prime minister of Israel,
She was
and
amazing.
she
Amazing.
amazing person, right? And she was asked about the Palestinian people, and she explained that herself. She is
Yeah.
Palestinian.
I mean, when were Palestinians born? What was all this area before the First World War? When Britain got the mandate over Palestine, what was Palestine then? Palestine was then the area between the Mediterranean and the Iraqi border.
You say there is no such thing as a
East and
Palestinian.
West Bank, no. East and West Bank was Palestine. I'm a Palestinian. From 21 until 48, I carried a Palestinian passport. There was no such thing in this area as Jews and Arabs and Palestinians. There were Jews and Arabs.
It's a great scene.
She has a great interview, which she says that most people don't tend to know, but a lot of Muslims actually sold their houses to the Jews that came from Europe. All right. Many people tend to think that the Jews that came from Europe killed all the Muslims and expelled them from their homes. So hearing Golda Meir, which was prime minister, saying, no, most of the Muslims sold their home like usual people and they left.
Right.
What a problem with that? You know what I mean?
So most of the Muslims sold their land to Jews who were immigrating in.
Look,
But
I'm not saying there wasn't conflict here, all right?
yeah,
I'm not tending to say that Muslims sold their home and left. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that not all of them had a problem to leave their house and go to Jordan or something. They didn't want to live here to have a conflict, to have wars. They wanted to live their life. So they decided to sell their home to Jews and go away. So this is probably like every other person in the world today. If I'm living in the United States and I want to go to Canada and I sell my house, I don't see any problem with that. But the problem is with the other Muslims who couldn't stand that will be a Jew independent country here on this land, and they started the war in 48, which changed all the history till today.
absolutely. And I think that's actually really important to bring up that there was conflict in the land. I don't know enough about it personally, but you said that there were some land grabs via purchasing real estate, like you just said, but there were also land grabs potentially in conflict as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when David Ben Gurion, the first president of Israel, when he said to the world that we are going to establish a Jewish state here, Israel is going to be existed, and he called all the Jews that were going terrible times. I can tell you that my grandmother and grandfather were also a part of the Holocaust. They were living in Romania. Yeah. This area of Europe, it was really, really bad time to be a Jew. And, you know, they just wanted a country they can go to sleep without be afraid. You know what I mean? And the only country they felt like they are part of it, it's Israel, because Jerusalem is here, all part of the Bible and the Torah and all our kingdoms with King David and King Shaul and all the stories, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, all the Jews' histories this is the only place the Jews can feel belong to. And when they all started to came here, the Muslims saw how big we can be, and they couldn't stand it. So the first thing in the morning after the David Ben Gurion announcement, they started the war. And the Jews here, they didn't have any choice. They had to fight. And what is funny is that they actually won. And
Right.
after they won, I don't want to say the word occupied because it's wrong. I will say they just beat the Muslims and they took control on the land. So how can you blame somebody that was forced the war and won the war? This is amazed me every time. You see, if I come to you and I will slap your face, all right? And then you beat me. How
Right.
can I blame you?
Right.
you
Right.
know, this is so funny.
It keeps on happening pretty much with that sequence. And I know that we're kind of preaching to the choir a little bit, two Zionist Jews talking about this topic, but no less, it has become empirically clear that, we keep on not being the aggressor. And yet, for some reason, the Jewish people and the Israeli people, this is part of the general frustration of what it means to be a Jew right now, is that we're held to a higher standard for some reason. I get that we're the chosen people, but we're held to a higher standard where we have to keep on
You know that even in
being
the
perfectly
Quran,
moral when
you,
no other
you
nation is being looked at under a
it's
microscope the
it's
same
said
way.
actually in the Quran, in the Muslims, on the
Okay.
Muslims Quran, it says that we are the chosen nation, we are the chosen people.
Right. Right. So it's been decided. Like it's the tribe. It's not just the tribes. It's not just the singular tribe. The tribes have spoken. Okay, that we are the chosen people. It's been made very clear, but we keep on being put to this high standard where even when we're not starting the war, we're still getting in trouble for some reason.
I
And
will tell you why. I will tell you why.
yeah, tell me why.
It's really, really, really basic stuff. Let's say you live in the United States, you don't know nothing about the conflict, you never been to Israel, you don't know nothing. All right, you open the news, and you see a big big army like the IDF, one of the greatest armies in the world, not only in the Middle East, which I think is number one in the world. When you see the photos of this big army, like going out and killing, I won't say innocent, yes, but killing innocent Palestinians. So you right away you adopt the narrative that we are the bad guys, because you will say, oh my God, how do civilians can fight such an army like IDF? It's impossible. But what most of the people in the world that open the news, they are not being exposed to what happens first, even of the 7th of October. Have you noticed how fast people forget what happened in 7th of October, and the narrative also went back that we are the bad guys and we need to bring ceasefire. This is so funny. You tend to think what will happen in the Nazi Germany if everybody in the United States will say, no, don't bomb the Nazis. We need ceasefire.
Right.
Stop the bombing now. People don't understand that Hamas and most of the Palestinians in Gaza, yes, I'm not afraid to say that most of the Palestinians in Gaza, I compare them to the Nazis. I don't think they're any different.
So
When
let's talk about that. You're saying that most Palestinians in Gaza are not innocent?
Yes, I think they support Hamas, and Hamas is ISIS. I don't see any difference between Hamas and ISIS. And when you support ISIS, and everybody knows what ISIS does,
Right.
I compare you to the Nazis.
Right.
Why
Okay.
would you kidnap a 10 months old baby? You
No,
call
yeah,
you call No, I'm asking them.
yeah.
You have this name, how do you say it in English? Hostages, right?
Mhm.
When an army takes different soldiers as hostages, well, this is fine, all right? Like fine. But when you take a 10 months old baby and you take children's and you take an old grandmas as a hostages, what is your purpose? What you're trying to achieve with this kind of act? You know, cutting heads of babies, burn people alive, shooting RPGs on civilians' cars. You want free Palestine like this? You agree with me?
I will agree with you on that, that senseless violence towards innocent Israelis is not going to, quote unquote, free anybody.
Yeah.
But you know, I wanna gloss over that because I have a hard time saying that most Palestinians are Nazis or have Nazi-like behavior. I do believe that many Palestinians, if not a lot of them,
Stop. I have the perfect answer. I have the perfect answer.
you don't even know what I'm gonna say.
Yes, I know. I know. You said you have a problem to call most of the Palestinians. You had a hard time call most of the
I
Palestinians
do, yeah, I do,
Nazis.
yeah.
All right. Take the perfect answer. You
Okay.
know that most of the cities that Hamas invaded on the 7th of October,
Yeah.
they are the left side in Israel. All right. They were always supporting peace. They were always supporting Palestinians. You know, like they wanted to, they have a job and they wanted to give them a country and
Mhm.
they wanted to live them by side. They considered the left side on Israel. But after the 7th of October, you can hear many people, many people from the left side of Israel politically going to the right side. And you know why? They are saying if the civilians of Gaza were cheering and were giving candies and baklawas and were making party and were dancing on Israelis' bodies on the 7th of October, I don't want peace with them. I don't think they want peace with me. I'm going from the left side to the right side. I'm not afraid to call them Nazis because they are Nazis. And many people in Israel were shocked because they will always believe that in the other side we have somebody to talk to. And they got a wake-up call in this day. They were shocked. They didn't believe they can do something such a terrible thing, you know? What
Yeah.
they did, it's unbelievable.
That's fair, and unfortunately, there's no survey done in the Gaza Strip by Hamas of how many people support them or not. It's assumed that they
80% and more. I'm telling you.
You think it's 80%? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, that kind of statistic's not out there, but what I will say is that there is a percentage, definitely in the minority, I will agree with you on that, of Gazans that have been recorded, have been filmed chanting for Hamas to go away because they have the sensibility to know that the destruction that Hamas brings to the Gaza Strip, the corruption that Hamas has emulated to take advantage of the civilians, they know it's not good for them. While the 80% are conforming to just what the grand majority is to keep safe and to stay under, just to basically have that sense of loyalty, if you will, because you don't want to be recognized as a traitor. So I do think that there is probably a majority based on societal pressures.
I always say, I
Yeah.
always say also to my friends when we have a talks and we speak about the situation, when we speak, and I always tell them that the key of making history is on the Palestinian civilians. I always say, when the day will come that the Palestinian civilians will say, no more. We don't want any radical Islam. We want to be educated. We want to earn good money. We want to be able to take flights. We want to be able to be part of the new generation. We don't want to leave far behind. We want to be, we want to make peace with our neighbors. We want to stop all these terror organizations and all this and all. I don't understand it. So I always say that the key is on the civilians on Gaza and West Bank. In the day they will make the revolution and they will take take the control to their hand, this will change the Middle East. But the problem that they are supporting Hamas and all what they're doing, so I don't see when this day will come.
It's really fascinating. It's really, really interesting mindset. I think you're absolutely right in the sense that the civilians will be the ones to, they have to essentially cleanse themselves, if you will, of the evil that Hamas encourages into that society. And that's just an unfortunate reality. And it's a uphill battle for sure in that regard. Not to mention the literal battle the IDF is fighting, which I've been following almost daily now, regardless.
I'm not expecting the civilians there to condemn Hamas because they will be dead right away.
Yeah.
But if there will be like massive groups, if you will see a big part of the civilians coming together and like telling everybody to stop the war, and it's happened. It's happened in the history. It's happened in many places. But the key is in the civilians' hands. That's the
But
problem.
you did say something just now that does kind of validate something that I said, which is that if the Palestinian people did speak up against Hamas, they'd be killed. And that's why I think so many people are willing to celebrate these things, is that they're kind of being forced to celebrate.
You don't
They
need to
have to be-
celebrate. You don't have to condemn, and you don't need to celebrate as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard, honestly, to get a grasp on the situation.
You cannot fake celebration.
No, that's true.
That's
you
what I'm
can't.
trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the videos we saw definitely do make it harder to sympathize with the grand majority of the Palestinians that celebrate. And, it's a terrible situation for civilians to be caught in the crossfire of everything. But at the same time, it's hard. It does, those videos do make it harder for me to sympathize with their story. And I can tell you right now that it's a lot easier to create peace with the people that don't parade on dead bodies and celebrate the raping and the murder and the burning.
It's easier to create peace with someone who wants to talk.
Right.
If you notice all of the history in this country, we are the only people who came to the table to speak.
That's right. That's right.
That's a fact.
Mr. Kopell, I wanna reflect on something for a second. You said you live in Haifa,
Yeah.
and you live in the north of Israel right now. Is that a dominantly Jewish area, or is that a dominantly Arabic area?
All right. So I don't know the exact numbers to be sure if Jews dominates this area. What I can tell you that even you can check my you can check me in Google if you want. Most of Haifa is Israeli Arabs, which part of them Muslims and part of them Christians, but basically they are Arabs and they live side by side with Jews. We play football together, we work together. Where you have some people that dating with Arabs. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but there is many people who are dating together, Arabs and Israelis, Jews. But the really important thing is that they consider themselves as Israelis. They have all the rights I have. They can learn in university. They can own a business. They don't care about anything else. They just want to live their life. Most of the people, my father has a big business in Israel, and most of the people we work with are Arabs, and we have no problem. I will tell you something more interesting is on the 7th of October, I think that 99% of them were really ashamed of what Hamas does. They were telling me we're really afraid because we don't tend to think like them. This is not what the Islam represents, and they felt really shamed because they understand what the Palestinians doesn't. They understand that they want to live under Israeli control. They want to be considered as Israelis. They want to be part of the new generation. They want to have all what I said, learn at the university, they can have a Facebook page, and they can express their opinion. This is stuff that in the Middle East you don't tend to see in many countries. I think that Israel is the only democratic country in the area. which you can be a really freedomly person. You can do whatever you like. Nobody will tell you what to do. And the Arabs Israeli, they tend to like it. And like I said, the key is in the Palestinians citizen hand. When they decide they want to be part of it and leave all the politics by side, they will have a great life.
I think that's a great message to end on when it comes to the politics. I have one more question. For you.
I have
And
all
this-
day for you.
And this is from a comment that I keep on seeing on TikTok, okay, all the time.
All right.
Going back to the history of Palestine for a second.
Mhm.
Was Jesus Christ Palestinian?
Wow, that's an interesting one. But Jesus Christ was a Jew. No, I think it was the Judea kingdom. No, something like that.
Right.
I don't think it was Palestine. Palestine was much later.
So I know the answer to this question. I have to ask it because it's such a dumb question. Okay. But people who are saying that Jesus Christ
Jesus was a Jew. This
Jesus was
country
a
was
Jew.
belonging to the Jews. Yeah,
born in modern day Bethlehem, which
Bethlehem, yeah.
people will say is in the West Bank, right? But that wasn't Palestine. That was Judea, Samaria. And that was
Yeah.
in Roman occupied Judea and Samaria. That was way before the land was called Palestine. So
I was right.
yeah, you were right. No, I'm just tired of hearing it. I had to ask you because I wanted to get it on record. It's such a dumb thing to say, and it's an attempt to invalidate and put an erasure on the Jewish history. But it annoys the hell out of me. So I just have to ask the question. So
People, they don't understand that Christians and Muslims came after the Jews, and it's actually written also in the Bible and also in the Quran. It's written that Jews were the first religion ever, and then everything came after us. So tending to say we don't have rights on this land and we don't belong here, that's the biggest lie in the history, I think.
I would agree. I couldn't agree more. Mr. Kopell, what's the best way for people to stay in touch with you and reach you? Should they have any more questions, want to debate with you, want to argue with you?
I think the best way is to send me a message on Instagram. You have my name right, I see right under me. So feel free to text me, and yeah, we will keep in touch.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be sure to follow Mr. Kopell. He's awesome. Again, the way that he carries himself on TikTok and Instagram and live streams when he's talking to, pro Hamas supporters is incredible. And it's a talent that I wish I had.
Thank you very much.
And you've done the Jewish people and the state of Israel a great service. So thank you. And good luck to your ACL. And
Yes, my knee. Thank you very much.
stay out the knee, okay? And,
Yeah.
For the
We
listeners,
need to do more squats.
yeah, that's right. That's right. For the listeners out there, thanks for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed recording it. Please do leave a review on your favorite listening platform, and we will see you next time.
Shalom.